Hello, hello. Here we are again, coming to you from Broadcast Team Alpha. You know, the show for the thinking global citizen. The one that is not afraid to step outside of the box and look around and say to himself, Self, what is out there that I have not been told by the handlers of society? Well, my name is Agi, and my co-host Nori is on some well-deserved time off, and she will be with us later. And I'm coming to you now from 40-some plus platforms all over the world, because we are also transmitting through the wonderful platform of the Conscious Awakening Network. And because of them, we are also going out on Roku, 3 TV stations, and a bunch of other places. And check out the Conscious Awakening Network. They got about 40-some different shows on there that cover absolutely everything that you need to know about. So I think it is consciousawakeningnetwork.org. Just try that one first, and if that doesn't work, try .com. And before I introduce the guest, I want to tell you how you can connect with us. You can try us at broadcastteamalpha.com. or Broadcast Team Alpha on YouTube, or just about any of the other 40 plus places you find us out there. You will see our shows. And if you are watching us on YouTube right now, please subscribe and check the bell next to it, because then you'll have a notification when the next video or show is coming up. And that is also the best place to watch us, because that's the only place we watch the chat room. So you can actually ask questions and we can answer it in during the live show sometimes. So just do that. And well, I want to introduce the guest to you. And I've been waiting for this, because this is something I have known of him for quite a while. And recently, here in about a month ago or so, we got to talking. And this is a gentleman that has written 41 books. That's phenomenal. And his name is Gil Carlson. And for those of you that want to surf the internet while you're listening, I'll give you his his website. That's blue-planet-project.com. And if you want to go have a look at all the different books, you can go to amazon.com, or you can click the link below. That'll bring you directly into his books. So we'll have the link in the text below. We are going to talk about something that very few people know much about, and it is the hollow earth. And I want to say right off the bat, I do not believe the earth is hollow. I know the earth is hollow. There's a big difference between believing and knowing. And that is because, first of all, I've seen it. For the second, I've looked at all the evidence. We have the NASA print showing a huge hole going into the earth. And the reason you normally don't see it, because the computer slides a sheet of ice over the hole and makes sure that you don't see it. And we know that from people that have talked about it. And then there is Admiral Byrd. He talks about the land beyond the pole. And then we have Fridtjof Nansen, a Norwegian explorer some 120 years ago. He went and tried to find the North Pole. And the thing about it is, he wrote 2 books about his journeys, 2 journeys to the North Pole. But he couldn't find it. And there's a story to that, and I'm going to explain that to you in a little bit. There's so much other evidence that points to the fact that we have not been told the truth about this ball of mud we live on called Earth. And here is Gil Carlson to tell us more about that story. Welcome to the show, Gil.
Thank you, Augie. And yes, I'm Gil Carlson, and you've probably seen some of my books around. And that's true. There's 41 of them, and they're all amazing books. And on every subject that I felt should be revealed. And there's like aliens on the moon. Yeah, there it is, right there on the bottom. There it is.
I only got 7 of them.
And, sorry, I have to get you the rest.
Yeah, I am not through all of them yet, but yeah, I got that one. I got 2 more sitting there. This is the one we're going to talk about this time.
Yes.
And he's got other ones deals with.
Here is one of my latest that's kind of on a a little different, but there's a lot of information in there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That maybe things I shouldn't be revealing, but I felt it's necessary in today's world to reveal what's going on. But anyway, let's not get away from the subject here.
This is the first one I got from him. That's probably 2 months ago. I got the aliens on the moon. And there is a lot of evidence to.
Here is my very first book, Blue Planet Project.
Okay, you got to raise that up a little bit so we can see it.
Okay.
Little more. Yeah, there you go.
That's okay. And oh gee, here's an interesting one. My past lives book. This was an actual experience.
Yeah, I got that one.
Yes, it's very interesting. And it messed up my head quite a bit. There were a lot of psychic things that were involved, and I learned that your normal everyday life, there's more to it than that. There's things going on in the background and non-physical, even different realms.
Absolutely. But I want to start out with a simple thing, because a lot of people see, you have been in obscurity for a long time, just writing books and writing books and writing books. Now you're coming out talking about it. So a lot of people don't know you yet, but what is in your mind? Why did you go ahead and write 41 books about stuff that is so far out of the box you can't even see the box from there? What made you do it?
I just think it's in my nature. I've always had this non-belief thing in what's actually happening here and what scientists tell us, especially what the government tells us. I always want to look beyond that and find the real truth. Even with religions, I want to find out what happened in the beginning and before all this. And I haven't been afraid to reveal things that I find, even though I'm sure the government's not too happy with me.
Well, that's a common disease for some of us these days.
But things are a little different now. When I first came out with the Blue Planet Project book, there was people telling me that people have disappeared for writing less. It revealed a lot of things about UFO recovery programs the government was involved in, and about the person that revealed this information originally having disappeared after he revealed the information.
Yeah.
And it was like this information, nobody wanted to claim this information. Some people who had released a little bit of it did so under assumed names. And I kind of stepped out there in the open with my name on it.
Yeah.
My real address so they could find me, and didn't hold anything back.
Well, that is what it's all about, because the public is waking up in hordes to the fact that much have been kept from them and much have been lied to them. So you are on the front line here, and so are we and many others. There are thousands like us out there across the globe that is stepping up to the plate and saying, wait a minute, we're not going to play your game anymore. And that happens everywhere these days.
It's
So
amazing. It's amazing from what I'm seeing nowadays is,
yeah,
it used to be people would see UFOs or some kind of contact or something like that, and they'd be afraid to mention it because their church or the government would like frown on it.
yeah,
People would like ridicule them, but it's different now. People believe in this.
yeah.
I was
I
talking to
rem
this.
I remember I had a friend, a pilot, that was years ago. He talked about seeing a UFO in church, and the minister told him to leave. We don't want you here.
Yes, I believe it, but it's now there's a big interest in all this. I remember a while back I was in a market and I happened to get a conversation with a checkout girl there, and it came about that I mentioned the books I had written, and she was telling me that she had gone to she was like 23. She had gone to Roswell for the one of the conferences there, and she was really into that, and so I made sure she got all my books.
Yeah.
But there's a lot
Say,
of
I
people into
uh,
this.
I want to talk a little bit about this book, The Hollow Earth, and there you go. Talk a little bit about all the things that you find that points to the fact that there is something to this. And let's
Well,
look at,
first, I've got to say, I disagree with you on one thing, Augie, your belief in the hollow earth. Even though that's the title of my book, um, I don't actually believe in it as such. I believe there is actually a molten core at the center of the earth. I think there's no way to get around that. That's what science tells us. But it may be a little different. It may be acting as a sun for some of those inhabitants down there. What actually I
yeah,
believe in is more the inner earth. That there's things down there. I don't think they extend all the way down to the center of the earth, or that it's completely hollow. I think most of these things, although they go deep, they're under the surface.
yeah. Let me remind you of something that I have found, and that is that, yes, they're saying there's a molten core and there's lava everywhere in there. Remember, that's the same people that told you that the moon is a dead rock in the sky and there's nothing up there, right?
Right.
What make you think they didn't lie about the Earth also? And
Oh, just from everything I've seen, although this counters what I just said about not trusting the science and everything else, but there's so much information
yeah,
that we wouldn't have the gravity, the Earth wouldn't be
yeah,
able to survive the way
yeah,
it is now.
yeah,
But going back to my Aliens on the Moon book,
yeah,
I believe there's enough evidence to show that the moon is hollow.
yeah. And let's just go back to the caverns inside the Earth. There is an awful lot of evidence for that.
Definitely
So speak to that a little bit.
okay, the what they've uncovered in Turkey that goes down, ooh, what 80 levels. These are a complete city that they've discovered down there. And
I think that's the one where they said that there was something like 30,000 people that could live down there.
um,
Oh, oh,
in my book, I've got what I came across with was they said 100,000,
oh, boy. Okay.
and
Yeah,
and
that's
I think it's very logical about Admiral Byrd and what he discovered. I
yeah,
mean, he was very credible. He wasn't hallucinating, I don't believe, like they
no,
said. And I've recreated his diary in my book so people can find out more about what actually happened. And
mhm,
some of it's a little unbelievable, but there's a lot of things out there that is unbelievable that are true.
yeah,
We keep discovering. Um, there's caverns in South America that go on for miles. There's tunnels that go from, oh, where is it? From Great Britain to Turkey, I think.
Yep.
And it's just one of the things they used to say was that people couldn't survive underneath the earth there, underneath the surface of the earth. But they found vegetation, there's oxygen, everything else. And it's,
Yes, they
and
have discovered a lot about these, and there is actually writings that goes back a very long time that talk about these caverns and societies and people living under the surface of the earth. Some of you out there have read Bhagavad Gita and the big book. I've read
yes,
it.
it's a very big book. Have you read it all? Are you still working on it?
Yeah, I know that was a good while back.
Okay.
I read fast. And in there, they talk about, yes, there are civilizations living inside, and there is entrances in the Himalayas going down and down and down, way down into those big caverns.
Yes, Shambhala.
Shambhala.
Yes.
And these writings are not just from India. There are other societies. Tibet have the same thing. So we wonder, do they end up the same place? Or what do you think?
It seems to me there's several different, I don't know what you call it. It could be broken down in several different groups. I think there's tunnels where past civilizations, people have gone down under there to live, to avoid whatever is happening on the surface, whether it was nuclear wars or just fightings of some kind. And I believe that originally there was probably aliens.
That could very well be.
Were the first ones on this earth, and a lot of them went underneath.
Well, you also know that in the Indus Valley, as well as in the higher elevations of India, there is evidence that there were atomic explosions.
Yes, it's very interesting.
Yeah.
There's so much that happened. I mean, they say that we're the most advanced civilization and we started from cavemen and gotten here, but no, there's so much proof going back that people have been here, civilized people, maybe millions of years ago.
Yeah.
And, they found, things that look like electronic things, mechanical things going back, thousands and thousands of years.
Mm-hmm.
Things that existed before we invented them, or we thought we invented them.
Yeah.
And so there's probably several different groups here. Like I say, maybe it started with the aliens living underneath. They might have been the ones that created a lot of those caverns, because they had there was like giants and aliens, and maybe they were the same. The ones that built the pyramids with those great skills. It's probably the same type of equipment or science they had that could make cities. And because you go down there, these aren't like, some aren't like caves. These are like carved into the rocks and the stone and rooms and stairs and marble stairs.
Yeah, that's right.
Things.
And
they're going down there with a shovel, and it's amazing, some of these things.
And they have several doors.
Yes, especially the ones in England. I think it was Nottingham, the cities down there. They're beautiful. And
when you look at these entrances, there's a door. And getting by that door is not that easy, but once you get in, you can see the steps going down. So that is not just a cavern from from water having come out or anything like that. No, this was an engineered stairway going down.
And definitely by someone who had great skills.
Yeah.
There was a story which a lot of people would probably consider a delusion, but I actually believe it. In Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, a number of years ago, there were miners that they were trapped in a cave-in in the mine, pretty far down. And they said how after several days, there was a doorway that opened up and there was a light behind it, and they could see marble stairways going back. And there were actually some type of human like beings. They weren't miners. And they told them that they would be rescued soon and things like that. And then the door was closed.
Wow.
Yeah, that's and there's a lot of other stories like that too.
Yeah.
I mean, there's of course there's
I know there was a mine, I think it was in Arkansas or somewhere, a coal mine where there was 2 or 3 miles down in the ground where they ran across stairways and the walls. There were houses down there. There was kind of tipped over a little bit, but there were houses that was 2-3 miles down in the ground where the coal was. So that dates back millions of years, and it was all made out of stone.
and there's even supposedly, and what I believe is most of these people or these groups that were living underneath and probably still are were more advanced than us. I think there's enough evidence that a lot of the UFOs we see flying around didn't come from some planet, light years away. They probably came from inside the Earth.
Yeah, there is a written record of that in the Sumerian tablets,
Okay, I missed that.
Yeah, they talk about the Anunnaki that came here.
Oh, yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a very interesting story.
450,000 years ago, they splashed down in the Arabian Sea and they walked ashore and they created their first settlement. They called it Eden. Kind of sounds like Eden, doesn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, and from there on, the story goes on. So I think we've had some visitors. They brought technology with them.
There's a friend of mine named Maya Blue, and he's looked into a lot of things, and he's very, very into spiritual type things. And he claims to have been told by a spirit guide that there's I forgot what they were called, but there was a highly advanced group of people underneath the earth, and they're like referred to as the earth protectors. And they come out with fly around on alien type craft just to supervise what's happening on the earth and trying to protect us from what's going on.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's a lot more things like that going on. And then of course, we've got the government who's been with nuclear drilling equipment, drilling caverns and everything else. Supposedly there's tunnels connecting Area 51 to maybe Los Alamos and places like that. And who knows where they're connected to. And there's or what's going on down there. And of course, the caverns that lead from under the Denver airport to a number of bases.
And there's talk about I used to fly into Denver a lot when they built that extension of the airport, and it was deep. It was huge huge cavern down there. And from what I understand, they never really wrote much about in the papers of what they put there. But I fly over it. I look down in it, and it was way down deep. Probably somewhere, if you put stories to it, it could probably be 6 or 7 stories deep.
A lot of strange things going on there. Supposedly there's elevators that you have to have a special key that go down, and they see a lot of like strange people or military people that go down these elevators and never return.
Yeah.
And it's very, very interesting.
Yeah.
I believe it or not, I haven't written a book about it yet, but maybe one of these days.
You probably will.
Probably.
I want to tell you, as well as the listeners and the viewers here, about something really strange, because I am not going to vacate the issue of a hollow earth. I want to talk about that a little bit.
Okay.
There is actually some evidence. First of all, we have the NASA print showing a 700 to 800 mile wide hole at the North Pole region. Yeah. So the question that comes up right away, why does all the water don't drain down there? Well, because inside the crust, there is gravity. So the curve at that North Pole region is so shallow a curve that going there, you'll never even know that it goes over and on the inside. There's some evidence to this, actually, because about a little over 120 or 110 years ago, Fridtjof Nansen was a Norwegian, and he went to the North Pole twice. First time he got close, he said, and then the second time he made it. But what happened is that when he got up into the polar region, he said there were strange things that happened. When the wind came from the north, they got sand in their teeth, and they had yellow and red coloring on the ice. They took samples of, and they found it to be pollen from flowers. And they found dead bees on the ice, right about 83 degrees north. Dead bees on the ice from about the closest place there was any live or dead bees was 1,500 miles away. Bees don't fly that far.
I definitely believe there's an opening there, and there's probably lush lands down there.
Yes.
And I did cover a little bit about your fellow Norwegian there in the book. And I found it very believable, very interesting. There's also something about that opening. Of course, there's a lot of openings into alien bases in a lot of our mountains, Alaska, Shasta, and there's some kind of technology where these openings, they fly in and out, but these openings cannot be seen. Whether it's some kind of light or some kind of like, I'm not sure what, but, and I think it may be the same thing where it's not always visible. There's also something interesting that I covered in my book about satellites flying over the North Pole and showing a big black circle up there at the top.
Yes.
Whether that's an actual opening or it's something that's blacked out by the government, so we wouldn't see what was under there. And as a pilot, you're probably familiar with many years ago, a lot of the airlines used to have polar routes, like from America to Europe. I don't think they do that anymore.
They fly around it.
Yes.
Because the actual area where the North Pole would be is restricted airspace.
Yes. I heard from, 80 degrees north and 80 degrees south. it's a forbidden zone.
Yeah. Yeah, you
It's
wonder
kind of
why.
interesting.
Yeah. And then there is this enigma of Crocker Island.
I haven't heard of that.
Yeah, that is actually north of Alaska up into the Arctic. And there is maps that date back 100 years or more. They show an island up there. And there you can Google Crocker Island and you'll find that there's supposed to be an island up there, but it does not show up on newer maps.
Hmm.
And there are testimonies or stories from people that have found the island, and they see that there is actually mammoth, kind of like the overgrown elephants, and they are still up there.
Wow.
And in fact, there's also stories coming out of Russia that they say at their northern coast, there are islands off there where the mammoths are still alive. So we don't really know because it's very censored, these kinds of things, and poo-pooed, because when the government say it, then it's always true.
Okay.
Yeah.
Uh,
But
we've been lied to a lot.
yes, we have. And then, of course, we have a Norwegian explorer about 100 and some 40 years probably now ago. He Olaf Jansen, him and his son,
Yes.
they went and they found themselves going to the north, and the wind brought them into that area where there were luscious green grass. And yeah, you wrote about that.
Yeah. It's really interesting. But you've opened my mind to a lot of things. Maybe I'll come out with a second hollow earth book. I'll explore your theory of actually being hollow. And maybe the government is lying to us. Maybe there's more to it.
It probably is. And for anybody that wants to know what he found, you can find it in another book, actually. It's The Smoky God. That was...
Yes. I mentioned that also in my book. Yeah.
And then we have the Vikings. The Vikings on Greenland. They went back and forth to Vinland, which is, in the northern Canada. And they disappeared in right about 1400. 1420, they were gone. And they left words behind that they ran out of wood. They couldn't make boats anymore, so they were landlocked. So they knew they were it got into a mini ice age about that time, and they got so they're cold that they knew they were going to freeze to death and die. So the Eskimos told them, don't stay here, go to the north. There's green vegetation up there, and it's nice and warm to the north. And they kind of proved it to them. So the small, I think it was 30, 40 different Vikings that was there, and they went to the north. They followed the Eskimo. They had a guide that went there, and they went to the north, and nobody heard from them again. We can presume that maybe they got too cold up there and they died, or they made it into the entrance. Now, later on, I found out there is a Viking enclave up in that area. But,
wow, that's interesting.
But the thing about it is that we know all animals in Canada, or birds, they migrate to the south in the winter time, right?
Right.
Mostly.
Yeah.
The Arctic fox in northern Greenland, they migrate to the north in the winter. Why
so
would
they know something we don't know?
I think they do. And on top of that, when you add that to the I know where the entrance is. If you go from the northern tip of Greenland, and you go straight north and then show a course 30 degrees to the left, you'll fly right in through the hole. And I know that because if you ask any astral traveler, if they think about going there to have a look, they will find it.
Interesting.
Yeah. And another thing I want to just say real quick, that NASA print I mentioned with a 700 or 800 mile wide hole at the North Pole.
Yes, I have a picture of that in my book.
Yes, I've seen that. It's a good one. And it is not just that it has been blotched out, because you can see the inside is a little crinkle. That when you blotch out something, there is clear cuts.
Ah, good point.
And this one doesn't have that. You can see there is ice ridges and stuff on the inside of the circle. Now, if you take that 700-800 mile hole and add that to what Fridtjof Nansen found, he was going north from 80 degrees northerly latitude, 81 degrees, 82 degrees, if straight ahead, 83 degrees, straight ahead, 82 degrees. Wait a minute, something went wrong there. They should have gone to 84 and 85, but he couldn't find anything further north than 83 or a little more.
That's something that we need to investigate.
Yeah. And I ran some numbers years ago, and I found that the missing distance from 83 degrees to 97 degrees coincide with that 800-mile wide hole at the North Pole. They're about the same circumference and distance. So if you add those two concepts together, they prove the same thing. Because when Fridtjof Nansen came to 83 degrees and a half, I think it was, he said something, he kept going back and forth, couldn't find anything further north than 83 degrees. So he says, my instruments are wrong, he says, because this cannot be. I declare this to be the North Pole, and he went home. He wrote 2 books, and I brought them both from Norway to the United States when I came here. I have the books.
Wow.
They're written in Norwegian.
Well, so, that doesn't help.
No.
Not for me anyway, but.
No. So, yeah, it's all in there. And this is something that it was so long ago. Those books are hard to find. They may be in some national archives back in Norway. You can probably find them, maybe in a dusty box somewhere in an attic on a farm, but this is what he wrote. So then again, the dead bees and the pollen, 1,500 miles away from where, so there's something up there.
Definitely.
It could be the entrance into the center, or they could be Crocker Island or an island like that with an entrance into the cavern.
Now, this thing about the flying over that area and the instruments being off and things not being right, that kind of reminds me of what happens over the Bermuda Triangle when they fly over there and it throws off their instruments. I wonder if there's any relationship between what's underneath there and maybe an opening there. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
well, that's
can we go back? Can we go back to the Vikings? I'm curious.
Okay.
Did the Vikings, were they aware of this opening into the inner earth? That's why they sent them up there? Or did they just lie to them and send them up there to get rid of them?
Well, that's a thought.
I don't think the Eskimos would lie, would they?
No, I don't think so. The Vikings were, I think, according to the writings of Snorre Sturluson, which is the only one that really has written the history of the Vikings, I think the Vikings were pretty oblivious to the fact that there may be green vegetation to the north, but the Inuits or the Eskimos, they knew, and they told them. That's how I think it turned out, because they left words behind that they have gone with a guide to the north to find the land of, there was a word that they said, green land or something up there.
Okay, so we don't want to insult the Eskimos. Although I guess by calling them Eskimos, we're insulting them. But I used to have an Eskimo girlfriend when I was living in Alaska. But anyway,
Ah,
that's a different book.
yeah, the indigenous people, they are closer to the earth than we have ever been. And they,
Definitely,
yeah,
yes. They know a lot of things we don't know.
yes, they
We can
do.
learn a lot from them.
We should listen more.
Yes. And drink more coffee
Yes, absolutely.
and make us smarter.
Yeah. Now, there's another one that said that the earth is hollow, and that is Edgar Casey.
Yes, yes. I was going to mention that. And I have so much faith in him. And everything he came out with was right on. And I can't see him being wrong about anything. And he actually said it was hollow.
Yeah.
And I put that in my book. I'm not sure if he's the one. Someone said that there was actually several different levels or dimensions inside the Earth that each had their own gravity.
Yeah. That's what he said. Yeah.
Opposing gravity or something. Yeah.
Yeah. There was an astronomer that said that too here back in the 1950s. He said he thought it was several layers, which could lead me to think that what he was talking about were more like caverns. Because I don't know how.
Very interesting.
Yeah, how they could separate several layers if there was just hollow and floating. That would be a little hard, I think.
If it had something to do with the atoms and gravity and things like that, not being actual physical, but more of a
yeah. And then we have the Nazi Germans. They found something in the South Polar region. That you wrote about
supposedly, they had quite a base down there.
Yeah.
Submarines and even advanced UFO type craft. What's interesting, when I was researching it for my book, the photos of down there showing strange things, pyramids, things that look like openings into the earth, and numerous other odd shapes that weren't natural to the environment. And also the fact that the government has restricted anyone going down there in certain areas.
Yeah, you can get on to the land coming from South America. You can go across. I have a friend that went there, but they just went to the shore and they really didn't explore much on the inside. But there's also restricted airspace around the very center of the 90 degrees south.
It's interesting, all the restricted airspaces on this earth. Yeah. That would be an interesting book in itself, just exploring all those, what's really going on. Of course, there's the one over Area 51. But in my Area 51 book, I've come up with some great satellite photos of Area 51, which I think NASA didn't realize that they were available if you dig deep enough. But, of course, that's another story. I had a friend of mine. I've got a lot of connections with different people, and I just kind of attract people like that. A good friend of mine who was a pilot and flew a lot of planes out of Area 51 and some of the other bases in Nevada. And matter of fact, he proofread my book for me. And also, I probably shouldn't mention this, I hope nobody's listening, but I have a relative who worked as an air traffic controller at Area 51. which was very interesting. Of course, I wouldn't publish any information from them because I wouldn't want to get them in trouble.
Yeah.
And I don't go out of my way to publish classified information. You know, I just don't do that. There's enough available out there. But I have people that come to me in the military and the government that share things with me. And
Yeah.
um, well, I'm not going to take documents from them, classified documents.
Yeah.
They sometimes mention things that lead me somewhere that normally wouldn't be discovered. And a little bit of deep research, I come
Yeah.
up with things.
Yeah. That would be kind of fun to know if they had any unusual aircraft come in and visit Area 51, and maybe they would be there to see it from the control tower.
Yeah. But I stay away from that. I don't want to get anyone in trouble.
Yeah, that's understandable. But let's revisit the German Nazis during
yes.
Because I had a good friend in Tucson, Wendell Stevens, Colonel Wendell Stevens. I interviewed him about 2 or 3 times on my TV shows that I had here.
I'm familiar with him. There was something about, I don't know if it was something he revealed, but he ended up going to jail for something.
Yeah, there was something like that. He had talked too much, I think, but
yes, that can happen.
Yeah,
I don't like that.
But he said that he showed me some documents that proved very clear. These were Nazi German documents. In fact, I took pictures of it and I put it on my website, broadcastteamalpha.com. If you go into the picture gallery, you'll find them. And in there, they talk about where the entrance to the South Polar gate into the center of the Earth is. That is one of them. And also they talk about, they found an entrance from where they can run a U-boat. And there was a 30-degree path, a cavern going down. They ran the U-boat down that cavern into the inner Earth where there is ocean there too. And it was written in German, and my German is rusty, but I made it through and I can understand a lot of it. So these were German documents, and he got them from Nazi German, somebody over there. So I totally believe they were real. I don't think.
I believe it's still an operation down there.
Yeah.
Because I know they've created, like, they continued a lot of their projects, their UFO projects, and down there, and they were doing very advanced things. So it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, and there is actually a voice recording of a speech that Admiral Dönitz in the Nazi German military. He said, we have created a base, a safety base, a Shangri-La, impenetrable Shangri-La for the Führer in another part of the world.
Yes, I remember hearing about that.
Yeah, he was talking about Neue Schwabenland. That is in the northern part of Antarctica and Queen Maud's land. And if you go to older maps, it's still called Schwabia after the
interesting. And it's interesting that I guess it was Admiral Byrd that led that expedition down there to wipe them out, and they returned with their tails tucked between their legs.
Yeah, and he lost some ships.
Yes, and a lot of people.
Yeah, there were a lot of people died on that trip. And the funny part about it, if it was like they said it was for geological research, why is it still, every scrap of paper connected to it still classified 80 years later?
Yes.
Doesn't make sense.
There's a lot of things that are very interesting that are still classified. I guess even the JFK assassination, a lot of that's still classified.
Yeah.
but I won't get into that because that's too many people have disappeared by revealing that stuff.
Yeah. And there was one thing that we talked about earlier, and I forgot to say it, and that is there was an astronomer named Halley. You all heard about Halley's
Oh,
comet.
yes. Yes.
Halley said the Earth was hollow because he said the numbers does not come out. The moon is too big, too close. If the Earth is solid and the moon is solid, it cannot happen. So he said the Earth is hollow.
Okay.
That
there are a lot of interesting things between the relationship of the moon with the Earth and things like that.
Yeah. And for the listeners out there, if you know anybody that is an astral traveler, ask them to go and have a look, because they will find the entrance and they could go inside. You will find huge animals. You'll find green forests. You'll find small enclaves of people. They are in there for those of you that want to go and have a look. And they don't mind you there.
You've intrigued me. Yeah. I might take you up on that.
Yeah. Because a lot of astral travelers, they never think about it. Why would they go to, unless somebody tell them to go look, you know? But you got to determine beforehand where you're going and set the goal of doing it. Otherwise, you might forget when you get out there, because the astral vehicle has no intelligence of its own. It only operates from memory. So now go try it out.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh boy, oh boy. The papers, the Admiral Byrd's diary is very interesting.
Yes,
yeah, you write about that.
And it's, you know, it's so many people have dismissed it as illusion or something like that, but there's, you can't dismiss it. I mean,
no,
he was a very incredible person and very credible, and so many things were documented. But I think what makes it the most believable is that when he returned, the government tried to cover up a lot of that.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So there's got to be something there.
Yeah, and it's still classified. So it was his son that brought the diary out after that. Yes. After he died, then, you know, it was brought out. But I have read the diary, and in fact, I read it live on TV and one time in Tucson, and that was a very interesting show, because he'd go into when he flew in through the hole, who he met in there, his conversation with the master that he talked to. And this gets very interesting. I know you're up on this.
It's like it was a very advanced race of people down there.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. I think that this is something that people should, I almost said Google it. Well, try another platform. Google, they censor stuff. But
yes.
Admiral Byrd's diary, and read it. And of course,
they can read it in my book too.
Yeah, there you go. You got it in here. So
yes.
Yeah, you know, they don't need to poke around for it. Just, I would say, go to click the link below, or go to Amazon.com, put Gil Carlson in books in there, or just Gil Carlson, and you'll see all the books in there.
And there it is up there, GILCARLSON. It'll list all my books. And actually, right now, just for this program, I've reduced the price on all my books. So take advantage of that before I sober up and raise the prices again.
I tell you, this Hollow Earth is a book that I researched this for at least couple of 3 decades, but I found stuff in here that I never knew. And besides
I
that, there's
that is
other,
quite a compliment,
yeah,
knowing your background.
yeah. And then there's stuff in here showing the picture of pyramids in Antarctica and
Yes,
structures. There's
yes,
stuff coming out of the ice that is being discovered now. There's a phase in Antarctica. We all heard about the phase on Mars. There's one in
right.
Antarctica too. So,
And what intrigued me was the connections with aliens and UFOs in there,
mhm,
down in the inner Earth and places like that.
yeah,
And of course, there was the a number of bases, alien bases around it. Well, I've got a book out on alien underground bases
yeah,
that covers a lot of that stuff.
yeah.
You haven't read that book yet. I'll have to send it to you. But
That's there is many, probably 100 or more of these underground bases where they have aliens working next to humans.
yes, another interesting thing about that is um, recently the government has always been saying aliens don't exist. Recently, they've been coming out with information showing typical alien-looking aliens, and like kind of saying well, there's aliens here. This is what they look like. But that is another cover-up because the aliens that are here working with our government look just like us.
Yeah.
They're hybrids, and they don't want us to know that. They want us to think, if it's an alien, he looks like one of those grays or something like that.
Yeah, they probably even work with both kinds, I suppose. But I know a lot of them, they look just like you and me. If you walk down the street next to one, you would never know it.
Yes.
Except a lot of these aliens, they keep their long hair.
Oh,
Yeah. Because this comes back to the Native Americans. They're also saying the same thing, that the hair is the antenna of the soul.
well, also it picks up the energy,
Yes.
and because there's actually nerves in it. But so that brings out another point. I always thought you were an alien.
Yeah. Well, I'm an alien and I have papers to prove it. So if I was born and raised in Norway and came here, that makes me an alien.
Yes, yes.
So, right. But well, I think we need to do shows like this again. This is just one issue, the Hollow Earth. There is more. And
There's definitely more. Here's the book I was talking to you about.
yeah, there you go. There you go.
This is amazing. It is so full of information on crashed and recovered UFOs and their occupants.
Yeah.
Look how thick this thing is.
Yeah, there is a lot of information out there. And then that will extend up to this one, the aliens on the moon. And there's pictures, there's NASA print showing they are there.
And I don't want people to think I'm weird or something, but I've been influenced on a lot of the books I write. A lot of them are, I've got a lot of connections. I've discovered ways to do deep research that's not available to other people. But also my whole life, I've been influenced by, I don't know if I refer to them as aliens. Some people will call them spirit guides. They've told me things, and they've kind of helped me with some of my books lately. There's certain things they want brought out. They influenced me on writing this book on aliens on the moon, which I did not want to write. I wasn't interested in it.
No.
And they told me they wanted it with that title, and they started leaking information to me. And then all of a sudden I got interested, but there were certain things that they wanted brought out. And one of them, I've got it right on the cover. The moon is the key to the secrets of the aliens on Earth.
Yeah.
That was one of the things they wanted brought out for some reason. As there's a few other things inside there too. They wanted brought out. But
yeah.
anyway,
And
we'll save that for another show.
yeah, just one last comment on the moon, and that is that there is papers and writings coming out of India, and actually Tibet also. I think I read it from India, and I heard about the coming same information from Tibet, saying there is a time before the moon. So the moon is a hollow spaceship that was flown in here and parked as an observatory for Earth. So yeah, there is stuff going on.
Yes, I cover a lot of that too.
Yeah,
it's very interesting. Also, with India up there now, they're going to be coming out with information that may counter a lot of things that we've been told by our government.
Yeah,
like maybe there's oxygen up there.
Yes,
maybe
it is.
There's alien life forms and cities and things like that.
On my on the broadcastteamalpha.com, I have NASA prints that Nori and I put into the picture gallery that shows there's clouds on the moon. You can see the landscape, and then an area of it that is kind of clouded over, and you can see it's cloud. It's not the ground that is smudged. It's clouds.
It's interesting, all the NASA pictures, they have a whole department to black things out. And you don't see those in their pictures. You just see black surrounding it, which is not real.
Yeah. We better save this one for the next.
I got something to tell you about that. I got a place I go to for breakfast all the time.
Yeah.
And here I live in Hampton, Virginia. There's an air base. There's NASA, a lot of other things. And about a month ago, I was having breakfast and I met this guy. He was a former higher up at NASA. He's retired now. And we got in the conversation, and he was very interested in getting my book on aliens on the moon, because he was telling me that they withheld that information from him about the aliens. Which I thought was interesting.
Yeah.
But he believed it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, folks, I think we have gotten down towards the end here. So I suggest just hang loose and wait for the next one. We're going to do another show, and I don't know which one we will. Maybe the moon, or maybe we'll pick something else, but it's going to be good. So stay with us, and we will come up with another show here shortly. And until then, just if you're watching us on YouTube, just click the bell and subscribe. And then in the meantime, be good to each other.